Okay, so this was me starting out my career. I didn't know anything about the DevOps space, and truly, I was actually worried about cybersecurity. And I thought that the IT industry actually looked like that. So, and I really wondered how all my seniors and people that I worked with looked like these guys. And I really didn't understand what they knew that I didn't know about. So today I'm going to be talking about DevSecOps and how to integrate it for better outcomes. So there's this whole new world out there that most of you barely have touched on. So some of you have heard about DevOps, and it's the integration of developers and operations because they used to be separated many, many years ago. But there's a lot of other cool ops spaces that maybe you haven't heard of. For instance, like NetOps, which is the integration between networks and operations that provides monitoring for those solutions. There's other things like AI and ML ops, data ops, but there's one thing that we don't really talk about, or I never had heard about, which is DevSecOps. So all these ops categories have these principles. They have continuous integration and continuous delivery, which basically allows you to add new features to already existing features without ensuring that they won't break them, as well as continuously delivering a product to a client without having to deliver one product right at the end of development. Observability allows for monitoring of the application once it's in the actual environment. So making sure that you have full visibility of the state of the application while it is running. And then we obviously want to automate this as much as possible. So what DevSecOps does is it takes DevOps and it performs security at every single stage of the development cycle, which I'll go through. So let's think about it as if you're developing a house. You first need to plan how the house is going to look. You need to develop it on, for instance, the specific specifications that you've been given, like how many bedrooms, bathrooms, etc. But then you also need to think about the elements that this house needs to withstand. So for instance, with security, it's about the idea of where your application actually lives. Is it public? Is it private? What is the actual attack surface that this application has? So what areas or means can a person use to exploit and compromise your application? Then the next part of it is building. So we obviously want to build something that doesn't necessarily only work, but it also is built on a strong foundation so that we can build a house that looks like this. So with this, we obviously want security during development. So we want to make sure that programmers understand that security is a fundamental aspect while they're coding and developing. And one way to do this is to use SonarQube. So SonarQube gives you the ability to scan your code base on, for instance, a CI/CD pipeline, and it will give you actual relevant data on vulnerabilities that your application has that you can patch, as well as it allows you to give information about like bug reports and stuff, so you can actually patch those bugs that could become security exploits later on. Then we obviously need a test. So we know that in our CI/CD pipelines that we test our application, unit tests, integration tests, but think about maybe testing it actually as if you're a user trying to exploit the application. So there's something called chaos engineering, which is when you actually test the application and you try to break it down as much as possible. You can use a lot of tools and go through OWASP, and they have a lot of tools on how to do this even in your integration pipelines. Then we obviously need to deploy this application. We often want our applications to be containerized. We want the ability to put the application on any single system. So to make this more secure, we need to scan them. So you can use tools like Amazon ECR, which allows you to, as you push the container to the actual repository, it will perform container scanning for you, and it will report on vulnerabilities that obviously maybe even the underlying container that you're placing your application on has. This gives you a lot of oversight on that. And Trivy is exactly the same, but it's a Google product that doesn't necessarily force you into the AWS ecosystem. Then we need to operate the application while it's in the environment. We need the ability to actually understand how this application is working and what it is running on. So we have governance in place. So governance is the way to put policies and structures to ensure that not only developers, but also the application that's running in their environment actually adheres to your security principles at all times. So for instance, with Kaivono and Open Policy Agents Gatekeeper, if any of you have worked in Kubernetes, but basically it allows you to place policies as resources in your Kubernetes cluster, and it will ensure that they are enforced. So it will make sure that, for instance, there's no such thing as privilege escalation. Your containers cannot be run as root. This obviously decreases the attack surface and the actual impact if a system is compromised. And then we have AWS Control Tower, which allows you to provision these accounts within your organization that have guardrails already in place. Then we need to monitor. So while the application is in the environment, we need to monitor its security. We need to do this through logging and other monitoring tactics. But one of the two things that I like to, or that I've used and have seen is OS query, which actually allows you to query your application's OS layer as if it's a database. So you can actually check like, when was the last time that the specific script was run? When were low-lying executables actually executed? And it gives you the ability to easily query this on your application. And then Falco is an intrusion detection system that actually uses some artificial intelligence to basically alert you when it believes there's been a compromisation of your application. So really, the idea of moving from DevOps to DevSecOps is the idea of being proactive instead of reactive. We don't want us to be reacting to security vulnerabilities and exploits. We want to be proactively thinking about security and how it actually influences our application, not only, for instance, using OAuth tokens, but also the true full life cycle of the application. So while doing this, you can make this IT look like this IT. Thank you.